ourselves when we have been sufficiently provoked. And this picture of the shepherd and his flock is woven into the language and the imagery of the Bible. The central plateau of Judea stretches from Bethel to Hebron, and it is generally very dry, stony, and rough scrub. The area was therefore pastoral rather than agricultural, and the most familiar figure in that pastoral scene is the shepherd. When Jesus spoke to the crowds, he always based his parables on what they could immediately see around them. Look over there, dark clouds are gathering. Or up there on the hillside. Over there in the field, the sower, and over there the shepherd. His theology always rooted in the down-to-earth and the familiar. A shepherd's life is a hard one, and the shepherd is never off duty. The countryside being ragged and rugged and harsh, with little pasture, means that the sheep have to travel long distances and can easily wander and easily be lost. So they need to be continually watched over. In the Hebrew scriptures, God is often pictured as the shepherd, and this image appears many times in Psalms, in Isaiah, in Jeremiah, in Ezekiel, and in the New Testament the shepherd appears in all the gospel stories and in some of the letters too. Today, Middle Eastern shepherds still have different ways of doing things to European shepherds with their four-wheel drives and their whistles and their border collies. When we were fortunate enough to live in the Middle East, we travelled and we lived in rural areas, and I often came across scenes reminiscent of biblical times. Oxen pulling a wooden plough, donkeys in the threshing floor, and shepherds and goat herds. Because it was very cold at night, the shepherd always wore a very rough, heavy coat and carried with him a stout stick. And because of the many dangers, the shepherd stays out day and night with his flock. And in the time we were there, I was fortunate enough to see a bear, wolves, jackals, snakes. I didn't see any, but there are also large puma-like cats there, and of course eagles and vultures that could easily snatch away a newborn lamb. And the shepherd carried with him a slingshot. And if the sheep wandered to a dangerous area like the face of a cliff, he would fire his way. He didn't fire it that way, he fired it that way, and he would land a stone just ahead of the sheep, and they would be spooked and run backwards. And the lead sheep always had a bell round its neck, a cowbell, so the shepherd carried his own bell with him. And if they wandered into danger, the shepherd rings his bell and tricks them back to safety. But the shepherd's most amazing tool is his voice. You hear the shepherd long before you see him, and his voice calling out over the hills and valleys, a hoarse, rasping cry in a language all of his own. And the most fascinating sight is when two flocks come from different folds and mingle together over the same pasture. And when it's time to move on, the shepherd calls out, and the sheep separate out once more into their own flock. The sheep indeed know the voice of their own shepherd. Jesus said, in very truth I tell you, us he was the door to the sheepfold. Well, in the Middle East, as you probably all know who have travelled to the Middle East, the sheep pen is constructed of a stone wall built in a circle with a narrow opening. And when the sheep are safely gathered in for the night, the shepherd lays down his blanket across the opening, and there he sleeps. The shepherd is the door, protecting the sheep from thieves and robbers. They will get to the sheep only over his dead body. It is a matter of life or death. We are warned that there are many shepherds that will lead us into everything but life. Many will take advantage of the sheep and use them for their own purposes. And Christians today live in challenging and demanding times. Our faith is open to scorn and ridicule, often disrespected, and sometimes it's deeply hurtful. We are seen as easy game for any who would wish to take up Christianity. But then, nothing is fixed or permanent anymore. There was a time when the rules of life were clearly laid out. Our forefathers knew where they stood, ethically, morally, theologically, politically. Now, everything that would appear is up for grabs and open to question. It would appear the solid ground on which our forefathers built their lives has disappeared. Institutions our fathers once built on the high moral ground are now crumbling, forfeited in the pursuit of profit at any cost. And we are left on shifting sand, like weeds blown around by the wind, of whatever clever or popular idea is in vogue at the time. With money in your pocket, you can legally avoid paying taxes, while the rest of us must pay every penny on time or else. And meanwhile, we are constantly subjected to a barrage of media information, propaganda, soundbites, and spin with clever, plausible arguments on all sides for this or for that. We are subjected to advice as to how we should live our lives, how we should conduct our affairs, how we should bring up our children, how we should spend our money, decorate our house, what clothes the children should wear. And Jesus warned that thieves and robbers will come and attempt to steal our freedom. But surely we are free, are we not? We're not restricted within reason. We can go where we want, we can travel where we like, but that's not the sort of freedom Jesus is concerned with. Jesus wants us to be free spirits, because free spirits don't simply comply. Free spirits can't be tied down. Free spirits don't fall within prescribed brackets, and free spirits are free thinkers. Jesus warned us about the thieves and robbers dressed in shepherd's clothing that will attempt to steal our possessions. But clever thieves don't steal our possessions. They leave us with our possessions because they know that those tie us to this world. Dangerous thieves don't rob us of our possessions, but our freedom and our will. So what then are we to do? Are we to lock ourselves away behind closed doors and sheep in an inexplicable way. It is rooted in the intimate relationship between the Father and the Son. That means there are no strangers in the flock. None who should feel that he or she is not recognized. Each knows, and each is known. But it's more than just recognition. A knowing means a deep involvement in the life of the other. An interesting picture of community when we look to our towns and villages just now, where neighbours scarcely know the names of those who live next door. But knowing and intimacy can be construed as a form of exclusivism, a kind of coziness that has turned inward. Only to be reminded by Jesus that there are other sheep who do not belong to this fold. The flock is not yet fixed. The fold is open-ended. There will be others who are not of this fold, who recognize the shepherd's voice and enter the fold. Jesus calls his sheep by name and will lead his sheep out of the fold into a life of freedom and fulfillment in the world. But fulfillment is not without cost, and sheep are not pampered or cosseted. When Jesus reveals he is the sheep, the gate to the sheep field, he is not suggesting that he is a unique way to safety or the only way out to pasture. He is saying he will prevent our destruction by laying down his life. What Jesus does for us is open the door to God, that we may have life and have it in abundance. He opens a way to God, not a God who manipulates or maneuvers or frightens or bribes or lays down the law, but the God we know and see in Jesus Christ. And in this fold, free spirits live in faith, an enduring faith, whether it be a Damascus Road faith or a gradual process built up over time faith, faith that has been wrought in the crucible of questioning and doubt and all the firmer for it, a faith that works, a faith that sticks out its neck, a faith that takes a risk. And faith follows and obeys, but it never stays in the one place. And the sheep move in and out in his kingdom freely. This is life in all its fullness. And this is the life he calls us to. He invites us in these confusing and anxious times to be free spirits in the world, to speak out for freedom, to speak out against manipulation and oppression, to speak out for Jesus, and dare to go where others might not follow. He invites us into the fold, a life of excitement, a life of challenge,